Hey, Cardinals fans. Hope you are doing well this Thursday. Thanks for joining me for another recap edition. As you may notice, it is just me here today, little bit light staff, so I'll do my best to get to all the highlights, really cover what stood out to me this series, and yeah, get you guys prepped for the Cincy series, the four game that starts later today. So here we go. Let's go ahead and jump into game one where we had Lynn on the mound and we got our good Lynn on the mound today. So let's take a look at what we saw from him and the rest of the team. Now, leading off in the first, Ozuna actually drilled a ball to the left center gap, and Siani somehow tracks it down, makes a diving catch, saves that extra base hit to start things. So obviously, Lynn's feeling it a bit. By the time the third rolls around, Burley starts to do his damage as usual with a nice drive down the side. Siani scores on that one. And then our buddy Contreras comes up back after his stint on the DL and just manages to squeak one through the infield. Not sure how much of a play that runner got in. So, kudos to Burley for playing a bit of a factor there. And then Gorman gets a little bit of a blooper in order to score. Uh, in order to get Contreras over to third. And then Donnie, who has been super hot recently, comes up and just great contact, drills that in. Wilson's able to score. I mean, just look at that contact off of the bat. And then this was actually a real critical play in the game. A double steal move by Ollie manages to tie up and actually prevent a called strike three there to end the game. Gets us a very important fourth out that'll come back later on. Now, obviously, Lynn is not perfect and wasn't going to be in this game. Goes ahead and gives up that line shot. But overall, we'll get to this a little later. Continued to do really well. So fast forward to the top of the eighth, and we just managed to escape there, as you can see. A nice little jam. Fernandez gets out of it. Now moving to the ninth, Helsley's in and looking for that save. Nice 4-1 game. And just misses. Ozuna on the bag. And now he's got to go to the stretch. I want to point out some things later that I think might be working out with him, but they're just able to put good contact on the ball. Seeing that off of him. He is able to get a strikeout there for that first out, but walks the bases loaded. And obviously real dicey here. Luckily, nice line drive, able to only score one because they have to hold up. But here we are, 2-run game. And a nice sac fly. Thankfully, Siani got to that one too, let's be honest. Keeps that at a 1-run game. And you got shorts coming up. And gets him on the high breaking ball that doesn't really break. Managed to get that first win. So yeah, as you had seen there, I mean, shouldn't have been that close of a game, but it is what it is. We come away with the win. Helsley gets the save. A bit of cardiac arrest there. Um, like you guys saw, I mean, the same guys, these young guys have been contributing. Burley, Donnie, even Gorman got in there mixed up, but I mean, an overall great pitching performance by Lynn. I mean, let's just go ahead and take a look at what he was doing all night overall. I know you saw some clips of it, but let's go ahead and take a look at a bit more of game tape, about a minute here of him. and he was just working everything. He's got his fastball working. I mean, working the corners too, making the players guess. Just watch what he's doing here. They really didn't look too comfortable with him all night. Kudos to him for keeping this up. I mean, nice fastball up there to get that swinging third strike. Let's be realistic. This is a very dangerous Braves lineup and one where they can really strike in any inning at any moment, almost everybody in their lineup. So he came out there, gave us a first game that we really needed. It's just unfortunate that it did end up becoming that close of a game because he really was putting together an excellent performance. I thought he might have been able to go a little bit further, but is what it is. And one of the nice things too, as you may see from the clip, he is approaching 1,000 strikeouts with the Cardinals uniform. So that's going to be one heck of an accomplishment once he reaches that. But I mean, a few more things that were there for game one, as you saw Siani's defense and Helsley having a bit of issues. I want to actually get to that a little bit later. We're going to see some more clips from game three and whatnot that are going to drive home a few more points about those guys. But overall, great win. Great way to start off a series against a dangerous team. Before we move on, one thing that I did want to bring up as well as we notated really early on, this was Contreras' first game back in 6.5 weeks. Obviously, he left after that catcher's interference play where he ended up with a fracture in his arm. Now, most of the timetables were saying it was going to be an 8 to 10 week recovery period. I know there were many on social media claiming it was doomsday and that Wilson was going to be down forever until the end of the season. 6.5 weeks, obviously nice speedy recovery. Let's go ahead and listen to him actually here talk about that a little bit from the game.
I'm glad that I made myself back, all the way back. Like I said before, it was supposed to be longer than that, but I pushed myself, I pushed my mind in the right spot. My family was there to help me, support me, and that's all I can say. I was a little anxious to start the game, but after the first pitch, I was okay with it. It was hard to see for sure, but no, it was just like a little anxious just before the game, and then after that, everything calmed down. Oh yeah, yes. Like I said, I like to be challenged. When I heard that was 8 to 10 weeks, I was like, making I'm making my way back sooner. Especially when I went on social media, people thought I was out for the season. I was like, they made me laugh. They don't know what they're talking about. They're still talking, but thanks for those comments. You guys pushed me, and I pushed myself, and I'm back. To be honest, by May 18, 20, I told myself that I was gonna come back sooner than today. But I spoke to the doctor that said that they have to give the bone the right time to heal, and I was like, okay, but I feel good. I tried to make it earlier, but I respect the doctor's decision, and we're talking about bone, and bone take a little while to heal.
You gotta love having that guy back and his energy. Two takeaways that I really got from that. He made me laugh a bit again with the people on social media overreacting who literally knew nothing about the situation and just ignoring all the doctors and reports. But secondly, the fact that he actually felt like he was good to go a lot earlier, but the team doctors held him back, made sure that that bone was healing properly. So as much as I would have loved to have him back sooner, I'm glad that they did that. So kudos to the team doctors not allowing him to just rush back, making sure he's good to go because we do need him for this long stretch. He is pretty integral. And before he went down, as we've mentioned a lot of times, he was top 10 hitter in the league. So having him back is important. As you saw there, he was critical in getting us that win again. So great to have you back, Willie, and looking forward to see how you help boost our lineup now that you are back. And that moved us into game two, which was set to be on Tuesday, but ended up getting rained out. Obviously, a lot of people were hoping they would call it sooner, but ultimately, if they can get that game in, everybody prefers that over a doubleheader. So moving to that, Wednesday doubleheader that we had. That also got rain delayed a little bit. And first on the mound, we had Gibby up. And so let's go ahead and take a look at some of the highlights from that game. Now, it's important to understand that while these rain delays are going on, it can be especially hard for pitchers who need to stay, in their routine and stay warm. They can sometimes get a little thrown off, and you're always wondering coming into these things where this is going to go. And, it did take a bit of an interesting turn by that top of the second with bases getting loaded and no out, not able to turn the double play there. And so unfortunately, that's going to come back to bite us with, the inning pretty much continuing to go on, walks a batter on, and ultimately, this is what we were talking about in game one. This Braves lineup is dangerous. Any one of them can strike at any moment, and they can go on rallies too. You'll notice these aren't always the best, most solid swings, but they're making sure to make contact with the bat. As we've talked about before, sometimes that goes a really long way, especially in this game. You put the ball into play and you make the other team have to get you out. And that can be sometimes difficult, especially if they're shifting, trying to play certain ways, and you're just poking it because of what they gave you. But yeah, they're able to put up 4 on Gibby. So, one of those games where he gets tagged with a few runs, but ultimately he was able to stay in. On the offensive side, though, we loaded the bases ourselves and weren't able to get as successful results. Burley does take that deep sacrifice fly and, good hustle by Win there in order to make it a real productive out. But I mean, from there, we get another walk, and you're hoping that we can keep this rally going ultimately, especially with having Donnie up. But he drills that ball, and it's just unfortunately at somebody. So inning over, only get 2 runs there. And, from there, it was a bit of a tough stretch ultimately. So Gibby ends up coming out, and Leahy comes in, and he ends up giving up this deep bomb, making it 6-2. And that was pretty much all she wrote from there. Braves were able to close us off, and there you have it. We have first loss of this series, 6-2. Now, as far as my notes really for this game, you guys pretty saw most of it. We just weren't able to tag them for pretty much, and the one opportunity that we did have to get anything, we're just hitting it at people. So it's gonna happen like that some way. Obviously, you want to take a sweep and win this middle game, so that way you already have the first 2. But it's not always gonna happen. Atlanta, again, they are a good team. They are not gonna let us just sit back and beat them on the road. And so expected a bit of that fight. Again, Gibby does what he needs to do. We brought him on to eat innings. Most guys, if they give up 4 runs in that second inning, they're out by the third or fourth inning just because they can't handle it. They can't, compete. But he continued to go, didn't give us a full 6 like normal, but, you know, do appreciate him eating a few of those innings so that way we could save the bullpen for the night game of the doubleheader because obviously we have to go right back at it. So got to have one of those short-term goldfish memories on the team here. And with that in mind, this was a bit of a scary situation for us as fans because this was a bullpen game. So we have Libby on the mound who usually thrives out of the pen, but being forced into another spot start. And so just hoping that he could deliver for us, and boy did he. So let's go ahead and take a look at the highlights from that game 3 rubber match against the Braves. So Libby was pretty sharp to start the game, and that bought time for the offense to find their rhythm and slowly start to attack in the third inning. And it was one of those things. Win gets a nice little single, moves the guys around, and then who comes up? Our boy Burley. Let's go ahead, show you what he does here. Drills it down that right field line into the corner, scoring both of those runs. Nice little double there. Look at that again. And so Libby's kind of cruising through here, pretty much just making everybody his bitch throughout the game, and everything seemed to be on for him. He was really dancing around out there, making sure to use the corners, keep the batters off balance, as you can see there. They're just swinging, hoping to catch that. But he had great movement and the precision too. That ball's supposed to be there out on the outside corner. If they're touching that, they're barely getting a piece of it. But he ends up getting pulled, and that's when they start to do their damage. Now, he was on a bit of a pitch count, and I'm going to get to that later because he was let to go pretty long. But, this Braves team finds ways to take advantage of you. And when they're not able to, they wait for the next pitcher to come. But is what it is. Great play there. Nado has that flow go a little outside. Goldie's able to make the play and the tag, get out of that inning. Bottom of the eighth, though, able to finally get some more insurance runs with a nice drive down that line. Just don't want this to be too close of a game again. And then Goldie, of all people, gets a stolen base here. And then we're going to go ahead and see this nice little shot through the gap. Just enough to score him. Great play there. And so now moving into the top of the ninth, Helsley's back out again. And he's facing damage. Now he's able to induce the ground ball, but unfortunately they can't turn the double play, just missing it at first. So tying run is still at the plate. Luckily this time able to avoid any real damage. Despite it being close, able to pull off that 4-1 victory there. So yeah, game 3, take the series. Beautiful game. I mean, again, little close at the end, but for the most part, if you're not like looking at, you know, that last inning, this was a pretty solid win. 3-run victory, and had it not been for a little bit of implosion by Helsley in the first game, another 3-run victory in that first game, had that been the case. So you gotta like what you have. This was a big test for the team. This easily could have gone the other way with a series loss or even being swept by these Braves. Not only are we able to get good ground, we got Wilson back, able to have a good test there. So you gotta be happy as a Cardinals fan in this series. Now, a couple things that I did want to touch on here with Helsley. First of all, he is coming off of an injured season, and this is by no means a critique of Ollie, because for the most part, outside of maybe a couple of times, he's just been coming in save situations. But he and a few other arms in the bullpen are clearly starting to look a bit overused. And I mean, just to put it into perspective, not only is he pacing to set a franchise record for most saves in a season. He's already set the consecutive saves record for the Cardinals now, but he's looking to set a career high in innings pitched and pitches thrown. So it just wears on your arm, and the last thing that we need is Tim to have dead arm issues or other sorts of problems come October. So again, not a knock on Ollie. These games are important. You cannot be losing these games right now, especially when you have a lead. So having to throw him in there as much as possible when we have that lead is necessary, but really need that offense to step the fuck up and start giving enough insurance runs so we don't need to be going to the closing rotation all these times. Because that's really where the problem is. We have guys who are there to eat innings like King and whatnot, but ultimately, if it is a close game, they're not meant to come in there. That's where we're supposed to go to our 7, 8, 9 once we get through that 6 or later and whatnot. And you just have to worry as somebody who's looking more long term at what effect that'll have if we cannot. Because right now the team is clicking for most parts on all cylinders and everything. And yeah, I would hate to see that, you know, fall off at all. So congrats to Helsley for continuing this up. This has been impressive. Not going to be perfect all the time. Hope he can figure out whatever it is that, is allowing people to read him so much. You got to wonder if it's something in the delivery when he has men on base, because it seems that once one guy's able to get on base, it kind of has a bit more of a domino effect. So got to wonder if it's him being in his mind or if that extra, look over is causing him to tip something before he throws the pitch. So we'll be curious to see, but all in all, still has that consecutive saves record right now going. So can't be too upset with that. Another key player I want to point out from this series has been Siani. He made two really big defensive plays early on in both game one and game three. And just having pitched myself, I can tell you when you get the early backing by your defense, it does give you a bit of fresh air where you feel like you can add a little bit of to it because if you do make a mistake, you've got your D behind you. But I just want to show you these catches that he's been making have been very low probability. He's getting great jumps. Let's go ahead and take a look at the catch from game three here. So let's go ahead and show that to you. Notice it's a pretty short, low line drive and not much time takes place on this. We're going to have a little bit of help from StatCast here, but covered 49 feet in 3.3 seconds, 7.2 feet on that jump, 10% catch probability, meaning he should not be making that catch. Everything pretty much has to go right there. And even with the game one in game one, similar thing there. If Ozuna starts that off with that line drive double, that easily sets the tone for a nice run from Atlanta right there. So he, as much as he hasn't been fully contributing on offense, though that has been getting better recently, his defense has saved us quite a few games already in the little time he's been up here. And he may be doing what Scott couldn't do and securing a spot on this roster for a while to come in that center field position. So we'll be curious to see how things play out as we start to get like Newt and Eddie back in. Things do have to shuffle around and whatnot. But yeah, is what it is. And last but not least, Libby. Now, we've given the front office and management a lot of flack for bouncing him back and forth, bouncing him back and forth. You gotta wonder how much is that he wants to be a starter, and they may not be willing to tell him that he might be better off in the pen or whatnot, but it is great seeing him grow and taking what he is learning in his successful starts, the way that he's mixing off his pitches and just figuring out the way to do it on a much larger scale than just one or two innings here. Masterful work from him. Let's go ahead and show you a few highlights from his pitching performance here. And again, this has been a long time coming. Really important to notice that across the league, I know a lot of people are quick to give up on younger guys if they don't perform right away, especially pitchers. But he's been with this team for a long time, and he's only 24 right now. To put that into perspective, most pitchers in the major league don't hit their, so-called peak era until about 26 to 28. Look at Sandy, look at Gallen. That's when they're starting to take off in their careers. It's very common for pitchers to not really mature and understand and catch up to the pro game until then. Obviously, you have outliers like Skeens that are, you know, top 10 picks and whatnot, but for some, it does take a little bit longer, and you can just see again, he's working his corners, and everything was working for him again. He was mixing in that fastball a little bit where he needed to, but mainly sticking to a lot of that breaking stuff and keeping them guessing there. And so, great work from him. Gotta wonder if that earns him another spot start or not, but it was good to see him have that success there because you do want that young kid to have success. He's still a controlled arm on our team, and we are fans of the Cardinals. I will say this till the day I die. It is about the name on the front, not the name on the back. If you are wearing the birds on the bat, I am fucking rooting for you to have a great year, whoever you are. Even if I've hated you in the past and don't like you currently, I want you to do well. You are a Cardinal. You are my team, so, and again, to be clear, I have not been hating on Libby, but you had to wonder what his role was going to be, especially as this highly touted, potential starting prospect that hadn't panned out so far. But I mean, it's glimpses like this that show you why you should not give up on a youngster like this. 32-year-old that can't find success, sure, but 24-year-old, give him some more time, continue to develop him. And yeah, I mean, I would still like to see him get back to the bullpen for the rest of the year, just because I feel like that's a good way where he's, learning this game a little better and gaining that confidence. We've seen success with it before on our staff, doing it with guys like Wayno, where they can learn the game an inning at a time rather than being asked to go out there and be masterful for 5, 6 innings. But yeah, a great start from him. Again, he was on a pitch count, and this is something that I do want to touch on. I am glad that Ollie left him in longer than that pitch count, but he left him in a lot longer. And if you're then going to pull him later when he's having a fantastic start and nobody's really getting anything off of him, you can't come back and say it's because he was on a pitch count. You threw him over 20 pitches over that pitch count. If he's on a pitch count, sure, a couple pitches. If it's 60 pitches, sure, let him go 65, 67. But you're letting him go over 80 and nobody's still hitting him. You can't then suddenly come back in my mind and be like, oh no, it's his pitch count. Let Libby start that inning and have somebody warming up in the pen or two guys warming up in the pen, lefty and a righty. That way you got a couple options. Because I mean, ultimately he should have that chance. He's under 100 pitches. We are pitching in a double header, so any extra, you know, life support that you can give the pen, the better. But, all works out. We end up getting that win, like I said, win the series, which is the ultimate thing that matters. Managed to gain that game back on the Braves and everything. And I mean, we find ourselves still sitting at that, 5 wild card spot. The Padres have been on a little bit of a tear, winning 3 in a row. Mets are winning 3 in a row as well. So we do have people right on our asses, breathing down our necks. So really no room for failure here. And that leads us into this upcoming series that we have now, finishing off this June homestand against the Reds that is starting tonight. in about half an hour, a little more than that. And yeah, this is one of those series where we really need to take advantage and build some, you know, in division momentum and whatnot. Because if you do look at the standings, the Cubs are still technically hanging in there and whatnot. They're 10.5 games back, 4.5 back of us. So if we can realistically take 3 out of 4 of these games and knock them back a couple of runs, games that could turn them into sellers at the deadline, which is good. It gives us one less competitor in this central division because right now everybody's still technically in the thick of things, at least for a wild card. But yeah, this 4 game series wraps up the month of June, and it's been a good month. If you told any of us that where we were starting in May, that we would be sitting here now in the number 5 spot, we might laugh at you for a bit and tell you, yeah, like everything has to go well, especially without Newt, Willie, and Edmund. And man, gotta give credit where credit is due. Always been pushing the right buttons. I know I'm not anywhere near his biggest fan, but he's been doing the right stuff. I mean, just take a look, that double steal that he executed in game 1 and called for. If he doesn't do that, Helsley comes in, that extra run, those extra runs come in, it's a 3-3 game there. So you hate that we run into the out there, but we needed that run and it was well done. I mean, you saw a lot more small ball and you've been seeing it a lot more recently. And I don't know why it took this long for him to really get into the mix of this, but like this team excels when we're playing this type of game. Home runs are nice and they do come in handy, but we are a team that needs to be scoring by hitting these singles and doubles, especially in the park that we're playing in. It's not home run friendly. Yes, you can hit home runs out and it does happen, but it does like to keep a lot in the park. So going for singles and doubles is a lot easier way to move those runners around than that deep fly ball and whatnot. But again, kudos to Ollie for all that sort of stuff. And yeah, that'll do it for this recap episode of Birds on a Blue Note. Thanks for joining me solo. Hopefully, I didn't bore you all to death with it just being me and whatnot. And I will catch you later this week. Be on the lookout. For those of you who are Blues fans, we plan on dropping a draft episode in the next 24 hours with our full projections for the Blues draft, including what we think is a trade that might go down. Stay tuned, see if we are moving up, moving down in our minds. And yeah, have a great rest of the night, and we'll talk to you later. Take care.